Welcome to the Amato Report. California Dreamin'. We all know that song, but it's more like the California Nightmare. That's why Steve Hilton, Chad Bianco are looking so strong in the polls here lately. Joining me at this time is someone running for state senate in District 22 in California, which covers part of San Bernardino County, covers part of Los Angeles County. It represents over 1 million people. With me this time, as he does in the past, has in the past, but on different topics, is candidate for the state senate, District 22, Republican candidate Mike Netter. Mike, good to have you with us.
It's great to be here today. It's usually great to be anywhere but California, but you know what, Rick? It is indeed a state worth fighting for, and I think we're gradually waking up from the days we call a dream to bring some sanity back to our golden state.
Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't it? And I'm going to ask you why you state that. But well, let me ask you right now, why are you saying that?
I think the biggest thing, and this is true of a lot of elections, but especially true in California, and I talk about this quite often, might have talked about it on the Amato Report before, that the biggest party really in California isn't the Democrats. It's again the party of apathy, those that don't vote. And there becomes a breaking point for anybody, right? It doesn't really matter what it is. The guy that wakes up and goes, I'm 370 pounds. Maybe it's time I lose weight. That's that particular person's precipitating moment when they want to lose weight. There's a moment where people decide what they want to do for a living. And I think it's a moment for most Californians where they're tired of looking out their window in downtown LA and San Francisco and seeing it look like a campground from a Grateful Dead concert where they're handing out free drugs and alcohol. And I think most people are getting tired of having to make sure that they're carrying their peace with them. Peace being not peace of mind, but peace under concealed carry as they leave the house because they're tired about the crime rate. And most importantly, I think people are waking up to the fact that, hey, California is still burning and doesn't seem the government really gives an expletive deleted. And it's hit the point, the precipitating moment for many individual voters. And that's what we need to focus on, where something has, quote, gotten their craw, gotten a spur, whatever you want to put it in the Texas mantra, if you will. And they're going to come out and they're voting. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing that with the early returns that we see where more Republicans are showing up. We're also seeing that from the wave that you see in the polls where people are starting to not buy into the message of the left that really don't worry, everything is fine. No, it's not. When you go to a gas station and it costs more to fill up your car than your first car costs, and when you drive through a fast food restaurant and the cost of a burrito is more than a gallon of gas, then people are starting to catch on that California has issues. And it's sunk down to the individual voter. And that's why I say that.
All right. Well, I think, Mike, first of all, I agree with everything you said. And you may have just elaborated and answered my next question. And that is, why are you running and what do you want the voters to know you stand for?
Well, let's start with the actual reason that I'm running to begin with. There's a misnomer running around in California that Democrats have a majority. They don't. They only have 48% of the registered share, and that's on a good day. But they have over 75% of the legislative seats. So we, the conservatives, and I'm going to change it from conservatives to the normal people, to the people that want life just to be normal, are underrepresented in the state legislature, which consists of two houses. Civics isn't just a Honda in California, which is the state Senate and the state Assembly, and we have a chance, driven by the top of the ticket, to break what's known as a supermajority, which means a lock on the keeping the bad bills from coming to vote and getting the good bills out, which can actually make a change for California. So the primary reason I'm running is I'm tired of being underrepresented, and I can answer in three short quips, if you will, or bullet points, as to what some of my stances are, because it's pretty simple. One, I stand for lower taxes. In California, we are overtaxed, and every time we turn around, there's something like 350 tax increases, local and state, on the ballot this time. Where I'm not going to go quite as far as Steve Hilton. I'd like to eliminating state income tax. I would like to see the state cut tax immediately that I'll propose for people making under $150,000 a year by 28%. Now, before everybody goes, oh my God, how are we going to afford that? That only costs the state $4 to $6 billion a year out of a $320 billion budget, but will actually increase our tax base by putting money back in the economy. I would also like to take and to my area, the East San Gabriel Valley, and do budgetary appropriations, if you will, for about $1 billion into safety infrastructure. You'll know that commonly as funding Prop 36, but also making it sure that when you answer 911, it doesn't take longer for emergency services to get to you in the East San Gabriel Valley than it does for the mortician to show up to find out what happened to you. And let's make it better for small businesses so they can thrive again by stripping regulations. Rick, not to show you up as a host, but here's an interesting trivia fact. Do you know how many laws each session California passes, a session being a calendar year?
I do not.
It's about 2,000. And if I was to have 4 to 5, 6 hours with this show and a panel of 1,000 of my closest friends, it would be difficult to come up with 2,000 new laws that we need. But because the Democrats have the supermajority and want to keep it that way, feel the need to put a clutch and a hold in showing they're doing something, they pass a tremendous amount of laws each year. And the first thing I'm going to propose is a review of, you ready for this? I know you're sitting down already. I don't want you to fall over. Why don't we review the laws we have and see if we need them? Because that's the myriad of regulations that we have that's keeping us from stopping crime, letting homeless roam the streets. We have too many laws now. We need to take a look at for duplicity. We need to take a look at things that could be eliminated so we have less regulations so we can thrive as a society again. This isn't about passing new bills. It's actually, new bills are important that will help us, like cutting our income tax and doing other things. But more importantly, we have to eliminate myriads of regulations which are used as a weapon when needed by the supermajority against the common public versus as ways to make our lives really better in California.
Mike, I really appreciate that elaboration. You did so in easy to understand terms. And I'm going to use the phrase common sense. You mentioned normal people. I'm going to use the phrase common sense. That is what is lacking in California politics. And that is what you just portrayed forward there, presented, is common sense. Your background, you're a radio talk show host, correct?
I'm a lot of things, Rick. Normal may not be one of them for those of you looking at me because I'm running for office, but let's put that down for 1 second. My background is actually from working up the food chain, if you will, in a $10 billion firm. And we call it in sales. My background is a computer, and I'll leave alone without going too much into detail. But as you saw in that article that I put out that was called Stop Talking, Start Acting, the company that I worked for back in the day, we were a multi multi-billion dollar company, and my job was to negotiate office products or office supply contracts with extremely large companies, the Northrop Grummans, Zurichs of the world, and ran teams like that.
Mhm.
And Rick, you may ask, what the expletive deleted does that have to do with politics?
Business.
No, a little bit more than that. Let me explain something.
Please be brief.
I will, since you asked. I was going to anyway, but I appreciate the opening. Office supplies in the day, well, we did these contracts and the big companies we negotiated with, and I did a lot with the US military, needed to get messaging out to individuals in the company, in the ships, in the various entities where their companies resided, Northrop Grumman and El Segundo, for example. Now, here's something very important to note. The commodity that I grew up in was the only commodity back in the day that touched every single individual in the company every day. Let me elaborate. The guy on the third shift might use a big pen, and the executive in the penthouse suite might use a refill for a Mont Blanc, but they had to order off our system, got delivered by our drivers directly to their desk. And so, unlike any other commodity, even computers, where you really didn't know the computer techs, we touched every individual in these large companies every day. So when they wanted to do specific messaging or get a feel, if you will, for how their employees felt about something, whether it be a social subject or a commodity subject, our company was leaned on, and I'm the one that designed the systems to get the communication and gathered the communication because every day those employees touched that commodity. And that actually prepared me for the recall of Gavin Newsom and prepared me for politics in general, because that's what the Democrats and many of the Republicans, quite candidly, are missing, is getting a loop feedback from individual voters. Rick, did you know I mislabeled, not misgendered, let me be clear, but I mislabeled a little bit here because I'm kind of a social media influencer, as you and I have talked. But
Yeah.
it's really more than an influencer. Social media is a two-way street. In other words, yes, I get 1 million views a day, but I also get about 100,000 replies or engagements each day. And we're able to gather that, like office products, to get a pulse on what the people of my community really think.
And I should mention, and I did in previous interviews, you handle the social media for Steve Hilton. Um, Mike Netter, your website, please.
It's simply up on your screen. It's netter.vote. Okay.
Netter.vote. And
And
before you go ahead, netter.vote. Okay. Before you go, I have to mention this. I mention every time you're on the air with me, and that is Mike Netter played high school baseball at the Rural High School of Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
indeed, I did. And by the way, if anything prepares you for life, it would have been the atmosphere of Ridgemont High back in the day, which real name was Claremont High. And by the way, before we leave this interview, I also would like to say that sports, competition, understanding how to build teams has a lot to do with what we need in the state senate and the state legislature to build teams that do things for the good of the public, not for the good of political gain, which we now term fraud, because it's much shorter and easier to say.
All right. Mike Netter, good luck on the June 2nd primary, and we will get the word out for you.
Rick, thank you very much. Remember, vote for Netter for a better California.
Vote for Netter for a better California. I like that phrase. Back with more after this.